Well, more discrimination from the Long Island Railroad. What else is new? This is another Newsday article about. It's funny. This is the stuff Channel 12 should be covering, but of course they don't care. So, up and over in a wheelchair. So, Long Island Railroad riders with disabilities struggle under the new service. So, this whole thing with the getting rid of the direct Atlantic service and having people go up and over to get their connections is really ridiculous. So this woman is facing challenges because of the new service plan. So the yellow tape across the Jamaica Station elevator punctuated an already challenging morning for Nadia Holubnikis. I can't pronounce her name very well, and I'm sorry. Heading in her wheelchair toward the third elevator ride since beginning her rush hour journey at the Floral Park LIRR station on March 16th. Her commute was stopped cold when the elevator to take her down to the next train to Penn Station was out of service. And this was addressed, by the way, at the committee meeting as well, that all these elevators are out of service. So it says, "What do I do now?" Said Hala Nisi, 54, who was soon surrounded by Long Island Railroad personnel outlining her options: wait for a later Penn Station train arriving on a different track, or cut through a stop train to get from one platform to the other. This is now not a smooth commute, she said, who was born with a genetic disorder called osteogenesis imperfecta. This is now stress. So the Long Island Railroad riders with disabilities say the new service plan has been particularly challenging for them, including requiring more transfers across different platforms at Jamaica Station. The MTA's chief accessibility officer said he believes customers with disabilities will adapt to the new schedules, which will provide many more opportunities to catch a train at Jamaica. MTA chairman and CEO Jana Lieber said the transit agency is committed to addressing accessibility and will look for opportunities to address concerns raised by passengers with disabilities, which is why you should just bring back the direct Atlantic service. But they're refusing to do that. It's a sentiment actually, she's transferring to a train to Penn Station. But this is why you need to have the across the platform transfers. All right, it can be done. It's just more work for the railroad, and they want to take the easy way out. It's a sentiment that's been widely shared by riders with disabilities since the LIRR last month pulled the trigger on its overhauled service plan for the opening of Grand Central Madison. The new operation entails far more transfers at Jamaica, many of them requiring that passengers trek from one platform up to the overhead pedestrian walkway over to another platform and back down again. An inconvenience to most any rider, the new system has been particularly onerous for those with mobility issues who already have to conquer multiple challenges to ride the LIRR. Those include gaps between platforms and train doors, stations that are not accessible, maneuvering through crowds, and as Holub Nisi knows too well, malfunctioning elevators. Although the chief of accessibility for the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, the LIRR's parent organization, encouraged riders with disabilities to try to adapt to the new system, the MTA's chairman on Thursday acknowledged to Newsday that the transit agency must look for opportunities to make the LIRR's new operation more accessible. "I am concerned about the impact on that community from the changes in Jamaica," said MTA chairman and CEO Jana Lieber, who added that enhancements should be made so riders with disabilities can use the system as well as everybody else. The railroad reconfigured its operation at Jamaica to accommodate added service to its Manhattan terminal, Grand Central Madison. The changes have included doing away with some across-the-platform transfers, more like most across-the-platform transfers, not just some, at Jamaica, including for most Brooklyn riders, which now arrive and depart from a dedicated platform on the south side of the station. What's more, the railroad has done away with time transfers, meaning the trains no longer wait for connections, which we all know has been a disaster. The new operation has sent hurried commuters on a mad dash at Jamaica so as to not to miss their train and left potential riders with limited mobility like Kathleen Downs choosing to avoid the LIRR altogether. "I would really like to take the train because I would be able to go more places on my own," said Downs, 30, of Floral Park, who has cerebral palsy and uses a wheelchair. At a public hearing about the new service in August, she implored the railroad to consider the needs of riders with disabilities. She feels like her input, as well as those of other customers with disabilities, were ignored. "For people with disabilities or without disabilities, I don't know what they were thinking," Downs said. "The up and over is not going to work for me. It doesn't work well for able-bodied people, so if they can't move fast enough, how am I going to move fast enough?" MTA Chief Accessibility Officer Quimel Arroyo, who also uses a wheelchair, said he sympathizes with the frustrations of transit riders with disabilities, but believes some of the issues will dissipate as they adapt to the new schedules, which will include nearly 300 additional trains each weekday. That means rather than going through the trouble of navigating to a different platform at Jamaica for a transfer, some riders can stay put and wait for the next train arriving on the platform they're already on. You have trains every 3, 4, 5 minutes. And it's true. It may be true going in, but going out, it's not as easy. All right? Going east, it's not as easy. You're not going to have trains as frequently going to, like, let's say you need to go to Flora Park. You may have a train every 20 minutes or 30 minutes or even longer. So that rush that people have in their minds is because they're thinking of the old schedule of how things used to be, said Arroyo, a senior advisor to LIRR, who rejected the notion that the MTA dismisses the concerns of people with disabilities. Yeah, well, they do, all right? Of course he's going to do that. The MTA is gears. They're run by Wall Street, right? We want a seamless experience for all our riders, and accessibility is now one of the two prisms by which everything at the MTA is looked at. It's safety and accessibility that's driving everything that we're doing at the MTA today. And here makes my point. Although westbound trains are frequent at Jamaica during the morning rush hour, trains to specific eastbound destinations can be much further apart, especially outside of the peak period. Arroyo noted that the MTA's current $55 billion capital plan includes $5 billion in accessibility upgrades throughout the transit system, the most ever spent by the agency. 7 LIRR stations are in line for those enhancements, like new elevators, almost all on the South Shore: Amityville, Copiague, Lyndhurst, and Massapequa Park. Meanwhile, the people of Hollis are still waiting. And Flora Park, well, it may have gotten elevators, but its station's falling apart. The upgrades will bring the number of accessible LIRR stations to 116 out of 126. The MTA, following a settlement last year in a pair of class action lawsuits filed by disability advocates, have also vowed to make 95% of all subway stations accessible by 2055. It's something that we are pretty passionate about. I think the way we've handled things over the past couple of years demonstrates that, said Lieber, who at a Smithtown event Friday also noted the LIRR has already figured out how to manage track assignments so there's less of that up and over transferring at Jamaica. Arroyo also encouraged customers with disabilities to take advantage of the LIRR care program created in 2018 that allows customers to arrange for assistance getting on and off a train before arriving to their station. According to this program's website, customers should reach out at least 2 hours before the scheduled departure time. The LIRR care program received 2,491 requests last year. Railroad officials have said they do not have estimates on how many of their riders have physical disabilities. And this is somebody from Franklin Square here. I don't know what station that is. Looks like it could be New White Park. It's probably the closest station to Franklin Square. But Brianna Copeland of Franklin Square said, like other LIRR riders, she wants to be able to catch a train at a moment's notice and wishes the railroad wouldn't put unnecessary obstacles in her way, including complicated transfers. Despite the roadblocks, Copeland, who has had both legs amputated, said she still frequently uses the LIRR for medical appointments in Manhattan or just to visit friends. And that's the other point, is that people have medical appointments and the railroad charges people at peak fare, people with disabilities at peak fare on morning trains. It's outrageous they continue to do this. This was brought up at a number of meetings, not just by me, but even the PCAC. And yet we're still waiting for the LIRR and the MTA to remove that restriction for people with disabilities and seniors. There are a lot of people with disabilities that are, I guess, fearful to take public transportation just because of all the issues. But me, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to run into this issue, and I'm going to tell you what you can do to fix it, said Copeland, 30. I've got somewhere to be, just like everybody else does. So a good article by Newsday talking about this. I really wish Channel 12 would have done something, but we all know Channel 12 does not care about people with disabilities. The Channel 12, very much like the MTA, geared to the Wall Street people. But this is outrageous, that all the elevators that are broken at Jamaica. I see it all the time. And, it's not actually I think those are the Port Authority's responsibility, because it was brought up at the committee meeting, which I did wind up watching the whole thing. And the Port Authority needs to get their act together with this, too, with those elevators. Really what they need is to put a new set of elevators in at the West Overpass. That West Overpass needs to be redone so it's accessible. Right now, it's only stairs there. So that's going to be it for this video. Again, thank you for watching.